Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and because we're such big fans of the English playwright Harold Pinter, we here at KENW are going to present for you the homecoming episode, that is. We're going to be talking about Greyhound great Larry Hayes. He's going to be doing a Zoom interview. We're going to be talking about the 1969 Greyhound Men's Basketball Championship team, a special segment. We're going to have Ryan Shumaker from Eastern Athletics to come in and talk about what's actually going on now and what the future looks like. So let's start things off with the pride of Dora, New Mexico, Larry Hayes, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and an honor to bring to Sportslook a legend, the fourth winningest coach ever in the history of collegiate baseball, and a proud graduate of Eastern New Mexico University, Larry Hayes. And Larry, welcome to Sportslook.
I'm glad to be here. Eastern's always been important to me.
And actually, you have 2 degrees, if I understand it correctly, from Eastern, not only a bachelor's, but you also got a master's.
Yeah, I got a master's there. Went to Texas Tech, was going to get my PhD, had 30 hours above my master's, and I started coaching and never went back.
And Coach, we talked about the fact that you went to Eastern to get a bachelor's degree. You went to Eastern for a master's, but no stranger to this part of the world. You're a graduate of Dora High School.
Well, Dora's really important to me. I was there at a good time. We played softball in the fall, basketball in the winter, baseball in the spring, and then all 3 in the summer. So I was there at a great time, and it was wonderful. And, and had a lot of connection with Eastern. Our coach had a great coach, Bob Buchanan, played at Eastern, he and his brother Tom, and he would come out. When he took the job, I think he had won 3 games the year before, and we had a bunch of sophomores, and he'd bring Brooks Jennings, Jimmy Joe Robinson, Clint Ramsey. All those are back in a day were big time names there. And we would play them during the week. And it took me half the summer to get the ball past half court with Brooks Jennings, and Jimmy Joe chased me around. And it was a great experience being at Dora and being that close to Eastern and being a part of, what was going on, because that was growing up. That's where I wanted to be.
Larry, we talked about the fact you became the 4th winningest coach in the history of collegiate baseball. Did you have any idea when you were going to Dora High School that coaching was going to be your career, or was this something that came to you when you went to college?
I had no idea. All I knew was I liked ranching and chasing cows and things like that, but I wanted to play ball, and my dad wanted me to go to college. No one in my family had gone before, and so he made sure that I did go, and I went to Lubbock Christian to play and played there 2 years, and then went to Eastern. And let's don't talk about my career at Eastern, because I think I played on maybe the worst team in the history, but it wasn't my fault because I sat on the bench. That's something you can say you sat on the bench. And I think we won 3 or 4 games. And then here comes Harry Miller, and man, did everything change.
I read a very funny quote by you where you said that you told people that you averaged 30 at Eastern, but you weren't talking about points, you were talking about seconds.
Yeah, I received an award there at homecoming a few years ago, and I made that quote. And when I said I averaged 30 a game, B.B. Lees, who had introduced me, his neck popped off, and he wondered what I was doing. And I said, no, not points, seconds. So he knew that was the truth.
Well, I had the privilege of broadcasting his baseball games back in the day. Another individual that you're familiar with, Wayne Moore, who for many years was the head Eastern women's coach. And what are your memories of Wayne Moore?
Well, I remember him playing in high school basketball at Elida, where I was born. And he was always one of my favorites. And I watched him pitch. He had a great curveball and, that height and those old long arms. And we had a graduate from Dora High School, Freddie Lott, and those two hooked up to really give him a good pitching staff at that time. And so, yeah, and then I think I played against Wayne. I coached against him. I think I coached the women's basketball one year, and I went over and we played Wayne, and of course he was loaded back then, and was always a great coach. He's a good men's coach at Melrose and Clayton and different places. Just a great guy too. And it's amazing how many coaches have come out of Eastern. I mentioned Brooks and Jimmy Joe and those guys. And one guy you probably don't know. Did you guys know Bill Snyder?
Absolutely.
You knew that? Well, it took me years to figure it out. I kept looking at him and I thought, man, he looks familiar. And I only figured it out about 10 years ago. That's how sharp I am. But, Army Salinas was a good football player, and Dean Bates was a good quarterback during that time. They all made good coaches over in Texas. And, Dan Hayes, who ended my career when Coach Miller recruited him, he went on and was great at Oklahoma Christian. And, we don't have time to mention all the coaches that's come out of Eastern over the years. And I think people would really be surprised.
Well, Larry, it's an honor. You have had such a phenomenal career. You've been such a positive influence on players at Lubbock Christian, at Texas Tech. And you got a hello to say to anybody in the viewing audience that would still remember you in this part of the world?
Well, my brother there at Door, I hope he'd remember me, but he might not admit it. Usually when people say, "Are you Larry Hayes' brother?" he usually says, "Why?" He's worried about something. But there are 3 people at Eastern. I'll just throw their names out: Harry Miller and Dr. Idy, the head of the history department. It's because of him I got my master's as quick as I did. There was a guy named Dr. Steve Eckstein, took some Bible courses there, and those 3 guys really helped me. Harry took me on a recruiting trip to Chicago. My first year, we saw 60 players, 6'6" or better. There was a guy named Bob Smith lined it up, and Harry really helped me take off on my basketball coaching. And he was, of course, we all know how great a coach he was.
Well, Larry, a pleasure to have you on Sportslook, and congratulations. And it's great to have somebody like you represent Eastern New Mexico University.
Well, I've been always lucky, and one of my lucky things was I got to be a grade hound. Even though I wasn't a very good one, I got to be one.
Well, thanks to Larry Hayes for being our first guest. So what we'll do is we'll go to the set and we'll bring in our second guest from Eastern Athletics, Ryan Shumaker, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a privilege to bring my good friend Ryan Shumaker back to the set of Sportslook. Ryan, welcome back.
Appreciate it, Doc. Always a good time being with you.
Ryan, of course, every time I have you on, I talk about the fact that you had a career here at Eastern that could be described as meteoric. Started out as an assistant sports information director, and now you're the assistant athletic director.
Yes, it's been an awesome 2, now going on 3 years, and although this year has been really unique, I mean, it's gotten off to a really good start. Really excited for the spring semester. We got a lot of good things going on. Obviously, we're going to have all of our sports playing, so really looking forward to this year.
And of course, that's one of the main, not just because we like you, but because you actually know stuff, and we want our viewers to be able to know stuff. So expand a little bit about what we know, what we think we know, and what we don't know.
Well, we think we know a lot of things. A lot of the schedules are still up for approval by the LSC faculty athletic reps and the LSC presidents. But right now, it's looking like we're going to start all sports in different stages, but beginning in January. I think basketball is going to be the first sport tentatively that's going to get started, followed by football. And then baseball, softball, and volleyball are all going to get started about the same time. So it's going to be a unique spring. There's going to be a lot going on. The good thing for us as far as game operations and sports information and just the overall management of the games is I think all of our teams are going to play a limited amount of games. The NCAA came out and said basically teams can play as many as they want. There's very few athletic departments, especially at the Division II level, that are going to be able to do that throughout the spring. So all of our teams are going to play a limited amount of games. Football right now, it's looking anywhere from 4 to 6. So half of those would be home games, so either 2 or 3. So although it's going to be limited, it's still going to be really good to get our student athletes first off back on campus and then out back onto the field of play and get back to somewhat of normalcy.
And of course, obviously, there are considerations that are still to be decided, and I'm sure safety protocols would be near the top of that list.
That's one of the good things, Doc, is I feel confident in saying that our safety protocols and what we're going to do once student athletes are back on campus and once we start actually getting onto the field of competition, we have a firm understanding of how we're going to keep our student athletes safe. Our head athletic trainer, Haley Parker, and her staff have done a phenomenal job, and Matt Billings, our athletic director, and really just our whole senior staff and our administrative staff that's really been working on putting that together, led by Haley Parker, have just done an awesome job. And our coaches are really bought into, they've experienced what a semester without being able to be a coach is like, and they don't like it. So they want to do whatever they need to do to A, keep our student athletes safe, but B, get to be a coach again and do what they love and what they're here to do. So we're ready to go as soon as we get the call that our students can come back, and as soon as we get all those different schedules approved, we'll be ready to rock and roll, and we're really looking forward to it.
I'll show off my pop music knowledge here. When you were saying that, I was thinking of the Imagine Dragons song, Whatever It Takes,
That's
and
right.
our coaches are willing to do that. Ryan, of course, this would have been our homecoming week in its total glory. We're doing the best we can, and we're trying to recognize it. What is the importance of homecoming at a place like Eastern?
I think first and foremost, it gets everybody together, gives everybody a sense of unity. It's always the most attended football game of the year. It's an opportunity to welcome back some of the people that made Eastern New Mexico University what Eastern New Mexico University is today. And that extends far beyond just athletics and the good players that we've had or the good coaches, but just the good the good students and the good people that we've had go through Eastern New Mexico University. It gives them a chance to come back and get recognized and hang out with everybody and see the place that they went to school. And it gives Eastern New Mexico University just a good sense of unity that these are Greyhounds of the past, of the current, and hopefully of the future.
Ryan, if people do want to know what is going on with Eastern Athletics, there are a number of different ways that they can access that information.
Absolutely. The main way would be our athletics website, goeasternathletics.com. Any of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at ENMU Athletics. We have a lot of different things right now that allows fans to interact and provides information to our fans and people that are interested in ENMU Athletics. So I encourage everybody to go and visit goeasternathletics.com, and especially as we start moving into our spring schedule, knowing when the games are, because it's going to be a very unique spring. There's going to be a lot of movement, and so the more information and the more people engage with that information, the more excited we'll be.
Ryan, in the past, you've been blessed to have had a lot of great Eastern students who have worked for you in the athletic department. Do we know if we're going to be able to utilize students in real time in the spring semester?
Doc, I sure hope, because if not, I don't know what we're going to do. I hope so. I don't know right now. I think students being back on campus is something that's being discussed right now. I have no indication that says that they won't be back on campus, but that's still a decision that the core staff of the university will make here in the next few weeks or so, I would think. But I sure hope so. Those student workers, I've said it many times on here, they really make our department go. We have such few full-time staff members that we rely on those student workers, and without them, I would lose a lot of sleep at night. So I'm just gonna, hope and pray every night that we get those students back.
Well, Ryan, obviously no one could have ever dreamed of what athletics would have gone through since like the 1st of March. And kudos to you, kudos to Matt Billings, to Mike Molina, to everybody associated with the administrative part of athletics. you have weathered the storm, you've kept the faith, you've kept people plugged in, and just congratulations on what you've done, and let's hope that come January, I'll be able to see you courtside and fieldside.
Doc, I really appreciate it. You know, we can only control what we can control, and we're really excited to get back in action, and I think it's going to be a great spring semester.
Well, that is going to wrap up the interview portion of Sportslook. What we're going to do is we're actually going to cue up a feature that we did a little while ago on the 1969 Greyhound Men's Basketball Championship team, and let's cue that up right now.
Yes, it was a fairy tale ride, but we didn't think of it as some mission impossible. We weren't such Cinderellas that we didn't think we potentially could do it.
And the thing about it is, we just went out there and played. We weren't intimidated, and like I said, we didn't have any expectations. We just went out there and played basketball like we were used to the whole season. To us, it was nothing different. It was just playing basketball.
At every time, and we'd say, we want to just be here one more game, one more game, one more game. And when we'd come back, we were so excited and pumped.
And it was like, we'd win one, and we'd come back the next day, win another one. And it was, I don't think we ever realized what we were doing. We were just winning basketball games one at a time, because that's what you had to do in Kansas City.
But we knew if we wanted to reach the mountaintop, we didn't have to kick our game up a little bit more.
We didn't know anything about them. We just go and watch every day. We'd spend all the time in there watching the games when we weren't playing. But it was just like we just went up there to play basketball the way we were coached, and that's what we did.
They had a lot of great teams in that NAIA tournament. And being from New Mexico, we were kind of like, oh, okay, you know, they're not really taking us serious. They think, okay, you know, a easy game. But once we got there, started running our plays that Coach Miller would diagram, it was no stopping. Yeah, it was, and we beat some really good teams on that championship run.
And I remember the semifinal game and the quarterfinal game were our two closest games, and we really didn't put those away till near the end with our free throw shooting. So we weren't just blowing everybody away, but somehow in the national championship game, we just obliterated that team.
When you're on that court, you don't focus on anything except doing your job, and that's what we did. It became a brotherhood in that we were all pulling the same way on the rope. We were all focused on the same thing. We all wanted to win, and so that's what really, more than anything, made us such a tight team, was the fact that we were all focused on playing and doing our job.
We, when I say we, our team, we're almost like a family.
No individual thought they were greater than the team. We all got along really well. We pushed each other hard. There were no out-of-control egos.
And once we met Coach Miller, Coach Othick, and Coach Joy, he brought us into that family. And Larry Van Zandt, Jim Guyman, Jim Thrash, just so many wonderful, not only good basketball players, but even better people.
We didn't have any guys acting crazy or acting nuts, not because Coach Miller kept a thumb on everybody, but because he recruited high-character people.
Well, no doubt he was the best coach I ever had, but Coach, he kind of looked after me. You know, he knew I was the youngest on the team. I came there at 17, and like I said, me and my roommate Lulu were the only freshmen on the team. There were other freshmen, but we were the only ones that traveled and played.
Well, he was the consummate basketball coach because we were prepared on offense. We executed as well offensively as any team I ever saw. He was a stickler for good, solid, sound man-to-man defense, and you better play it. You better play it right, or you weren't going to play.
I must say, Coach Miller, not only a great person, just a really good person. Now, He can be hard on you. He can be Bobby Knight on you sometimes.
And Coach, you know, he was tough. Coach was tough now. When he recruited me, he's the nicest man in the world. But once we got on that court, he was tough.
Coach Miller, Coach Joy, Coach Othick, they didn't ride us, but they were such good coaches that if we listened to what they tell us to do, that we can make it to the mountaintop. And that's exactly what we did.
And I think we learned to appreciate the game at the purest level being under Coach Miller, because he taught the game right.
From there on, I kind of knew that Coach was the person that could, you know, I wanted to stay with those 4 years at Eastern, because he really looked out for me at a time where I really needed to be looked out for. And it wasn't like he was just doing what he did it naturally. He didn't have to think about it. He didn't have to contemplate it. He just did it.
Because to me, his legacy was not only what he did as a coach, but how he inspired us to go on and make a difference in coaching and with young people.
But it was just like, it was nothing like I'd ever experienced coming out of high school. And I was in it from a basketball crazy state of Indiana, but the Plex was special. Plex was special. That's the best way to put it. It was special.
When we were playing in that championship year, 1969, we had the best home court advantage any team have. When I tell people that Greyhound Arena was packed from the top floor all the way to the bottom, you couldn't get a seat in there.
Well, first time, I was a nervous wreck, you know, because I played in Indiana at a high school where we played in a packed house, but it was a high school gym.
I have never been in this type of environment that you had 5,000 fans screaming down, "Go Greyhounds, go Greyhounds." And we took a lot of pride in that. So we wanted to put on a show, you know, for the people that came, because they come from Roswell, Clovis, Texas. You know, my dad would drive over sometime from Victorville to watch us play, and he would say, "Man, I might have to put some cotton in my ear, because boy, they get really, really loud." But that just kind of boosted our playing even up more than it normally does.
Those kind of memories, the way that we were so excited, and each day we all had such a passion for the game. We enjoyed each other, and it was just great times, and is the cherry on the top to finish it off is just great.
That's all I could think about is, how did I make that decision to go to a team that was a national champion? And it was just, I think it was just destiny more than anything.
Well, I came over here 17 years old, you know, following because I believe my brother when he said, "Hey, you got to come over to Eastern, you know, you'll like it." And like I told you before, I hated it, that ride from Clovis to Portales. The first day I got here, I just like, no, this is not for me. But after my brother came the following week, because I had to be here a week early for freshman orientation, I met so many wonderful people here, so many. And just forget about playing basketball. The students, the townspeople, the professors, all so nice, so kind, and it's almost like a family. You know, it's almost like a family. And I often tell people, you know, Greg and I were one of the first blacks to come here, but there wasn't a lot of blacks here in Portales. But you would never knew that, because as my mom always would tell us, you know, you judge people by the character of their heart, you know, not their skin. And people treated us so nice, so nice. When I say people, I mean everybody. Coach Joy, we would go by Coach Miller's house for dinner. My dad would drive in from Victorville to watch us play, and I couldn't ask for a better 4 years that I spent here at Eastern New Mexico University. And even when I was driving in last night, I was kind of, you know, reminiscing all the, when I was a little kid, 17, you know, I'll be 70 this year, and think, wow, you know, where the time go. But I still have just really fond memories of East New Mexico and Portales, New Mexico. And it hasn't changed. Still got the same damn dirt. Still got the, but I love it. It's just nice. And it's always going to be a part of my heart. And like I said, before my brother passed away, we always talk about, you know, Portales and East New Mexico. Just, it's part of our family, part of our family.
At the beginning of the show, I talked about the fact that this was the homecoming episode because it is homecoming week at Eastern New Mexico University, and we're trying to make this a special occasion. We're doing a lot of events to commemorate homecoming, especially on Facebook, but realistically, it's just not the same because we're not having a homecoming football game, and that means we're not going to have a homecoming king, and we're not going to have a homecoming queen. And if you honestly thought that this might be your year at Eastern New Mexico University when you could be the king or the queen, that's a bummer. And I can tell you that from personal experience, because if you go back to 2003, the homecoming queen that year was a volleyball player by the name of Christabel Mariner. But the homecoming king was a broadcast journalism major here at Eastern New Mexico University named Cam Elder, my older son, who was part of Sportslook, was part of News 3 New Mexico. And the fact that he was homecoming king, I think, can be attributed to the fact that he inherited his mom's good looks and his mom's charm. Well, that is going to wrap up the homecoming episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank my guests, Larry Hayes and Ryan Shumaker. I'd like to thank my crew for putting together that look at the 1969 men's championship basketball team. I'd like to thank my floor crew with a new director, Ms. Kiki, running the show. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.